Well, that took us a little bit longer than usual to figure out, but we got it on the air. I blame Tulsi Gabbard personally, but
She's out to get you now,
there's
Zeb.
a malware named Tulsi Gabbard out there, and she's not letting go. Welcome to Narrative Live. We have a big show tonight. We're going to take a big look at the polling, the latest polling that was done after the Democratic debates, and things, to say the least, have shifted around dramatically. We'll tell you who's up, who's down, who needs to be out. All of that is coming up later in the show. Tracy McElroy, tell me what's going on in your world.
Well, it's July 2nd, so what does that mean,
You're
Zeb?
2 days away.
From turning how old? I'm gonna question you. How old am I gonna be?
I'm going to say 47,
One more.
48,
Yes.
nearing that half century mark. Isn't that
Oh, well,
nice?
thank you.
It's nice
Thank
when you
you.
get there.
Yes.
Well, we'll be celebrating here. We'll be on the air for you with a birthday and for everybody else, plus a special opportunity to join Patreon for your birthday, but also because it's America's birthday. And that story is also coming up because we'll be talking about Donald Trump's hijacking of July 4th in just a few minutes. But first, let's get going with what we like to call the starting
The
block.
starting block.
And in the news today,
Yeah, we're
some,
starting off with these three big stories. Who's this guy number one on the right there, Zeb? What are you going to talk about
Mr.
here?
Vladimir Putin, he had a submarine accident happen today. It's not just not just your everyday kind of submarine, if there is such a thing. He had a nuclear submarine. It's a spy vehicle, sort of crash on him and get a big fire. We'll tell you what that means to national security and a whole bunch of other things. And then in these other two, we've got
Well, yeah, of course I have to handle number two because it's my birthday. So we're going to talk a lot about Trump, what I'm calling the hijacking of July 4th, the hijacking of our national holiday. And then for three, what are you going to tell us about Hong Kong,
Hong
Zeb?
Kong. China's facing a big test. Can it handle the protests in Hong Kong? I think they're about to crack down in a big way. All that is coming up. But let's begin first with the Russian sub mystery because it is deepening. Now, if you've been following the news, we found out earlier on today that a Russian submarine, a very special Russian submarine with 25 sailors on board, caught fire. 14 of those people were killed. The rest of the crew were able to save the 14, and the submarine was then taken to a nearby port. Now, normally this would be one of those, who knows, maybe it's not that important thing. It is important because nuclear submarines have nuclear power in them and they float around under the water. But Putin cancelled his whole day, demanded to see the Secretary of Defense, who went over to see him because that's what you do when King Putin says you have to. Also, on this side of the Atlantic, Pacific, whatever, or Arctic, the Vice President, Mike Pence, also canceled his events. And that made everyone think, why is this all happening at the same time? Mike Pence was on Air Force Two. He was going to be about to
Yeah,
take off, and
there's
he.
some contradicting stories about that as well, Zev. Some were saying that the plane had already taken off and it was turned back around to DC. Then they're coming out and saying, well, he never actually left. He may have been on the plane, but the plane hadn't taken off.
No, no,
So
normally that
I'm
means
not
that.
really sure. I mean, do we
Yeah.
believe anything this administration tells us? I know I don't. So I'm sure there's more to that story as well.
I'm willing to believe that he was turned around because I'm sure there's other parts of the government that have shared that information. We don't know why, and I think that's why I am very suspicious. The timing with Putin's decision to cancel today also pretty weird. And when the vice president is called in, it means something might be wrong with the president. It means something might be wrong with national security, and they need the vice president nearby. Or it could mean, I don't know, he's going to upset something or something like that. I want to show you why we're all thinking this is a significant event. This is the vehicle or the boat in question. Someone who knows these things really well described it as no other submarine is the subject of so much speculation. It's called the Losharik AS-12. Now you see it there in the second part of that slide, surrounded by the red frame. That's because you can see that it's a smaller submarine, and what it does is it sort of docks in underneath a much larger submarine. So you could take this around and drop off your baby submarine to go anywhere. And because it's so specially designed, it has 7 of these circular pods in there, made out of titanium. So they're pretty resilient. They can pretty much go anywhere, and they'll go to the ocean floor and discover anything. Now, officially, it's used for just that ocean floor surveying. But what the rest of the world thinks it is that it's a very, very sophisticated spy vehicle, and that It's very important to the Arctic strategy of the Russians. And it's also important to note that the Russians are using submarines as their main vehicle. We don't have that many submarines in the United States. But the Russians, they love their submarines and they like using them because they can blow up aircraft carriers without being seen. And they've done so before. They can also hit targets from under the water. Just fire a missile right from under the water. Now, this wasn't a nuclear firing submarine, although it was powered by nuclear weapons. The rest of the fleet has nuclear weapons on them. It may indicate that something went horribly wrong and we need to figure out why. Or there might have been an accident or something else that precipitated the fire. We'll have to wait and see what all that is about, and we'll have to wait and see if we'll even find out all of that. So that's
So what is this map you have down here on the bottom left? Is
oh,
that the position of where the submarine was located?
that is not the position where the submarine was located. Let me see if I can pull it up for you again here, because I think I can. Yeah, so I always like to these days when we were talking about Arctic strategy, you go sort of have to turn the globe upside down so you can look at it from the top down. And so on the little square, I don't know if you can see it on the right hand side there is the location of the base.
Oh, okay.
And this is a very important base. The Russians have spent a lot of money and effort to build out an Arctic fleet. And then it's called Olenia Guba is the name of the base. And they launch a lot of their Arctic missions from there. You can see it's not that far on the other side of the Arctic from where Canada is. Very top of Canada and also Alaska. So, as the crow flies, actually quite an important base for them to dominate the Arctic and North American airspace because they can fire missiles literally anywhere they want from there. It's really interesting. We'll follow the story. I think there's a lot more to be told as we move along, and we should move along. Let's get to your story, the big story about the hijacking of July 4th.
Yeah, Donald Trump is calling this a salute to America, and I have a little screenshot of what his ad looks like. For Fox News, we did learn today, said that MSNBC will not, I say will
Oh,
not, carry this live. They'll
Rachel
be there. They'll be
Maddow, July
they'll be
4th.
available if they need to pull in any clips or if something happens, but they will not be showing it live.
I have breaking news for you too,
C-SPAN
by the
will.
way. I have breaking news. Narativ not carrying it at all. We just found out. They just told me in my ear, not carrying the July 4th thing at all. No salute to
So
America
does that
here.
mean I can go see my local fireworks
No, it
on my
means we're
birthday?
having a party for you on July 4th right
Oh,
here.
okay.
Donald
Okay.
Trump? Who's Donald Trump?
Well, it is kind of personal for me because it's always been a really special birthday. It's something every year with my family, we went to the parade, we went to the fireworks. It was just something really special. We had steamed crabs a lot of times too. But to see Donald Trump turn this into something that it should never be for the American people is troubling. I mean, we are going to have tanks on the mall. We're going to have flyovers. He's going to have big screen TVs. He's going to be making a statement. Now, he's saying it won't be political. It will just be American. Time will tell. He doesn't normally stick to his script if you watch any of his rallies. So it is saddening, and I'm wondering how many people will actually show up. I know that they're giving out tickets for Republican donors to be in VIP seats. Does that mean that the other Americans who would be there aren't VIPs on their own holiday? I mean, it's distressing to
Well, I
say
don't
the
think I think it's a
least.
complete takeover. I think it is just a sort of a side event that they're cornering off for the president, but it will look and feel like a takeover. They also are using a lot of tanks and weaponry and equipment that is not meant to be on the lawn and to be in all those places because they could damage. These are very very heavy vehicles. Plus, this is expensive. America doesn't really do this.
Right, we're
Uh,
paying for this. Our
yeah.
tax dollars are paying for this, and it feels to me like a Trump 2020 rally.
Well, it feels to me like something Vladimir Putin would do or
Right.
Kim Jong Un would do. It does not feel like something an American president would do. And, this is why Donald Trump sort of flies in the face of what American values are all about. We're not about that. Our strength comes from the people, it comes from democracy, it comes from freedom, it comes from our rights. And the minute you start militarizing the entire thing, you sort of place the emphasis on the wrong thing. Donald Trump doesn't get that because he wants to be Kim Jong Un, but he's not going to be, newsflash. And two, No one wants to see him on July 4th. We see him every day, endlessly. So go away, Mr. Trump,
It
on
will
July
be
4th.
the biggest crowd since the inauguration,
Oh,
no matter
greatest,
what
the
happens.
greatest,
So.
and the greatest fireworks display with the biggest weapons and the biggest everything. Speaking of dictators, well, some might call him that, the leader of China, Xi, is having a bit of a challenge. You know, in Hong Kong, there have been recurring protests, basically fighting against the idea that China can, what's the word I'm looking for? I forget the word. Bring you.
Don't know, Zeb.
So when you have a prisoner and well, yeah, when you so you have a prisoner. You got a
Okay,
prisoner. I
like
got a prisoner.
just tell the story and we'll
I'm Hong
figure out
Kong.
this word.
I'm Hong Kong.
Okay, you're Hong Kong.
I
What
have a
am I? Am I
guy.
China?
You're
Okay.
China. Hong Kong has had a crime happen in Hong Kong, and I have the prisoner. If I had a doll, I'll hold up the doll, but I don't have the doll. But imagine I'm holding up a doll. So you, China, would like to have your hands on this prisoner, so you've got an extradition treaty.
Yay!
So that's what I love doing today. So the Chinese.
It's a good thing our watchers love us. That's
the
all I have
the
to say.
Hong Kong residents are up in arms because they don't want this extradition capability for the Chinese to take away people from Hong Kong, because there's always a system of two states, one nation, and that's sort of what it's all been about once Hong Kong was taken over by China from the British. It turns out that you can't believe what the Chinese say all the time. You can't believe what dictators say all the time, because they've changed their mind, and now they want to bring any prisoners that they want over to China to face justice there, which has never happened before, and you can imagine why that's making people upset. Yesterday, they stormed the parliament in Hong Kong. That was pretty violent, pretty messy, and it feels to me like it's the last straw for Xi, and he might now suddenly decide to take something a little bit more seriously. According to Al Jazeera earlier on, he's now saying this is an undisguised challenge to the two-state system, and one state, two systems. Yes, something like that. And it looks like they'll be cracking down. The sort of undisguised challenge is indicating, to me at least, that we are going to see a crackdown of some form about this. So we're watching this very carefully. It'll be very sad if Hong Kong faces any bloodsheds or arrests, and certainly it'll paint Xi in a terrible light if any of that happens. And it's important for us here in the West, because we're becoming, in this new populist strongman world, this is what we're becoming like. And, you can say, hey, we might trust Donald Trump, which we don't, but we could say we might trust Donald Trump. But Donald Trump, 50 years later, may not be the same Donald Trump, and he may change his mind. And if you don't have democracy, you don't have the mechanisms. How do you get the guy out?
Yeah, and I mean, we can certainly learn lessons about ourselves from watching what's going on in the rest of the world as well.
Yeah, and especially learning how to knock down the walls in Parliament or Congress when the time comes. It's not there yet. You know what?
You're going to let me know at least 5 minutes ahead of time.
I'll send you.
Right?
I'll
Okay.
send you a memo.
You'll text me. Okay.
Here's a big memo. What? You want to know who won? You want to know who won last week? This is who won. The Pole Star.
Love
from
it.
last
I
week.
love
Isn't
it.
that nice?
That's fantastic.
Yeah, she looks.
You're in charge of all of that from going forward.
Thank
I'm giving you. I'm assigning you those jobs.
Thank you, Master. I have to say the Kamala, the Superwoman Kamala flying graphic comes from Wonket. They have a T-shirt available for sale. So
They do.
if you love it as much as we do, and we'll play it again at the end of the segment because we do, buy Wonket's T-shirt. They'll appreciate the support, and thank you, Wonket, for not suing us.
And
for using
also,
that.
Wonket has, I think, all of the candidates. They have really cool little T-shirts and
Yes.
stuff for them. So no matter who is your favorite right now, they have a T-shirt for you, I think. So check them out.
You won't find any Trump T-shirts there, but everybody else likely you'll find.
Yeah, yes,
You'll find. All right, so let's get on to the news. So the big polls came out. Well, some of the big polls came out on who won last week after the big debates. We had 2 nights of debates. Remember, Warren first night and others, and then the second night where all the big guns really played. Now, what we've done, rather than give you like endless different polls, is we've done something called the Narrative Number Cruncher, which takes a look at the 3 most recent polls taken after the debate. And this is where they stand. I mean, I think it's really interesting. Tracy, do you want to walk us through these?
Yeah, I mean, Biden, he's at 26%, but actually, Zev, he's come down a little bit in the polling numbers, whereas Harris, after the debates, she just shot up,
Yeah,
becoming number two at 16%. Sanders and Warren are both about 14, 13%. And then we've got Pete Buttigieg. Did I say it
you
right
did.
for
You
you?
did. You.
He's at 5%, Cory Booker at 3%, and Beto O'Rourke is down at 2%.
These numbers really are interesting. I mean, Biden has fallen dramatically. I don't think there's any surprise that he was going to take a bit of a hit, but he came from like 33, 34 in some polls down to 26. You know, you're almost losing 10% of the poll there. Harris has had a dramatic increase in every single poll, which tells me one thing. It tells me that she is liked. She took someone down. She went at Biden during that second poll. She's a fighter. She's not scared, and I think America is looking for someone who can take on Donald Trump and is not going to be scared of him in those debates. She showed everyone she could. I think Sanders and Warren, you're going to see that those two flip around, and Warren is going to start taking over the number three slot, and Sanders will start slipping. That seems to be how things are going, and who knows if Buttigieg, Booker, or O'Rourke, who of those are going to stay in, but we'll see what happens. I think O'Rourke might be seeing his time come to an end soon. Now, you noted earlier this interesting poll from a graphic. This comes from Real Clear Politics, also, which looks at all the different polls and combines them. And you noted this where the line is here
Yeah,
is right
where
after the
the
election, the debates.
right. We put the line right after the debates, which would have been, I guess, the morning of June
28th.
28th. Correct. And I mean, look at this. You can see Biden does a huge dip down. Sanders does a dip down. Warren does a little bit of an uptick, but look at Harris. That to me was just amazing. She just shoots right up.
Yeah, now she came from a lower place, so it's easier to show your climb from there. And you know, she probably came to where she needed to be. But you're absolutely right. That is a very, very, very dramatic move up. Now, you know, people in the business, they look at momentum. They look to see who's moving in which direction. And you know, look at her momentum. It's insanely high, as is Warren, moving upwards at least. Everybody else is sort of trending down, and certainly Sanders and Biden both trending down. In both cases, not too much of a surprise, but you know, Biden and his campaign have got some work cut out for them. In Iowa, the USA Today poll came out today, showed an even bigger surge for Harris. This is likely Democratic caucus voters in the Iowa caucus, which will take place, I think, sort of February time. Biden 24%, Harris 16, Warren 14, Sanders 13, Buttigieg 5. Those are probably going to be your five leading contenders as we head into the rest of the season here. And it's interesting how well Harris is doing amongst Democratic caucus voters, and Warren leading Sanders in the Iowa poll. So fascinating stuff happening just after one debate, and we haven't even hit the primaries yet. So we're beginning to see an interesting shape taking place of who might be the front runners and who will succeed. Your concerns after the debate, you know, we were texting back and forth, and you said you were worried about Biden's age, and I think it's a factor.
Yeah, I mean, just listening to him talk on stage, you could see he maybe is not the same Biden from 8 years ago, and that is absolutely normal. I mean, we all age, and it's a natural occurrence. Is he as sharp as he needs to be? I don't know. I still think he is a strong candidate. I still think he could probably beat Donald Trump. We're just going to have to wait and see. And it's also going to come down to how much money each of these people can raise, too,
Right.
Zev. So we can't forget about that.
Speaking of money, do you see Buttigieg is $24 million on a 5% share right now? I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Wow.
And he seems to have cornered this market. And if you look at all the polling, it is this market. It's sort of the white urban. I don't want to say elite, but you probably want to call it that. He's got this sort of college-educated white, city urban people who are like, maybe they're not completely liberal, but they're mostly liberal. And I think he gets an interesting share of the pie. It means he's not likely to win and to become the nominee, but he could be a kingmaker or a queenmaker in this case, because those 5% points are going to be important to whoever wins. Plus the $24 million that he's already raised means there's a lot of money coming at him. So we'll see if that becomes a factor in the remaining days here. Sanders as well, doing a lot well on the money front. I'm not sure how Biden is doing on the money front, to be quite honest. I don't think he's got the momentum, and that's going to be a difficult thing for him to succeed if he doesn't regain that.
And I think Harris had an unbelievable fundraising 24 hours after the debate as well. I can't remember how much she raised, but I remember looking at it and going, wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. Now, Julian Castro, who you were really, really impressed with, I was really impressed with too. We declared him the winner after the first night of debate. Either people forgot after the second night what happened on the first night. It may explain why Warren is doing not as well as Harris. But he sort of has disappeared. He stays at around 1% in the polls. He took down Beto O'Rourke that night, but he didn't seem to take down his number. And even though he's done all of that amongst the Latino community, he's doing quite well, according to a new poll.
Yes, and Harris as well.
Yeah, so it's shaping up nicely, but it's still early days. So, yeah, don't send anyone any congratulatory awards yet. However, we will be happy to declare Kamala Harris the pop star. Polestar.
Yes.
The Polestar for this week. Oh, here we go.
And that would be POLL, not POLE.
Oh. That just tells me where your mind is at.
One of those days.
We have an incredible day. I mean, like everything that could go wrong up till now, it has. We're still here. We're still cheerful. And it's time for the tweet of the day.
Oh, tweet of the day now, yes.
Yeah, let's see who this is. Who won? I'm skipping the graphic because it didn't.
Obviously, the USA women's soccer team.
Obviously.
They beat England 2-1, and they are headed to the finals. So, congratulations, Team USA.
So it's not NBC News that won the tweet of the day.
It's the actual soccer.
I follow sports so poorly, but the big star who was having a big fight with Donald Trump didn't end up.
Megan,
He's not playing in the next one.
She didn't play in this game.
Oh, okay.
But that's normal. We still won. They're saving her legs for the finals. So
my conspiratorial mind likes to go to places. Is there some dark force moving her off the field? But no. All right, that's our show for tonight. We're very thankful for you joining us and being patient with us for starting so late. We'll do this as often as we can, and we'll probably do another one tomorrow.
And hopefully we'll make you laugh as much every time, because we did tonight, and we're laughing at ourselves a lot tonight, which is always a good thing.
We do have, as we've promised, a big episode of our Untold Story. We start unpacking exactly what happened that made Trump be elected and let Russia get away with it. That's coming up this week. Plus, July 17th, the Mueller testimony will be live right here on Narativ Live. And if you want us to keep doing all these great things, we will really need some help. So please go to patreon.com/narrative and feel free to sign up for any amount there. The higher amount, the better it is. So, if you want, there's a $35, $55, $100.
If you can only afford $3, every dollar helps, you guys. Every dollar helps.
Especially because I know how much coffee Tracy drinks in a day, and that's like only a cup of coffee. So if you do $3 a month, it's a coffee a month.
I kind of do. And can I settle a little debate that I was having on Twitter? Starbucks from the other side of the country versus Dunkin' Donuts on mine. I'm going Dunkin' Donuts coffee all day long. I said it.
Okay, you can do it. I like Dunkin' Donuts coffee, I do, but I rarely drink it. So I will say I'm not voting with you, but I support you. That's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching Narativ Live.
See you guys back here tomorrow.
Bye. Oh, wow.